All right, excellent. So let me share again. Share. Oh, there it is. I had a window blocking it. All right, so as I said, really from a news standpoint, the thing I'm going to cover, I'm going to try to keep this down to 10 minutes. I'll make sure I do this. But there's actually a lot. I'm sorry, real quick one first before I get to the state of the word. So just a reminder for folks, the 2023 Meetup Annual Survey is out there. I'll try to put this, again, this link is also on our Hartford WP website. If you look at tonight's slides, it's in the resources section. So please take it really just takes a couple of minutes. It's and again, this year these new surveys that are separate for members and organizers. They've combined it this year, which is nice. It's an opportunity to share feedback to both WordPress.org as a whole, but also to us as Meetup organizers. So we really appreciate any kind of input you have on things we can do better, things that you liked, things, you know, anything we really do to improve. So, and again, some of that is for us, some of it is for WordPress.org. Here's your opportunity to share feedback to them, because I really do look through the feedback in there. And again, it's open until January 14th, so you still have a bit of time left. Again, I'll send out that link again when I sent the link to tonight's video recording when that's available. So just as a reminder. So this is what I'll try to spend 9 minutes on now. So yesterday, for people who don't know, there was the State of the Word presentation, which it was given live in Madrid, Spain, but it was also carried live on several different outlets. The YouTube channel for WordPress is probably definitely the best place to find the recording. There's a lot of great information. Usually this is a great thing to watch every year. Just to get an idea of, you know, both the past year, but also the direction of WordPress. And this is where you'll often find out major things that may not affect you today, but that you'll start to see sprinkled into releases throughout the year. So I highly encourage people to go back, even though I'll do a quick summary. I highly encourage people to go and watch it just to get some more details on this and watch some of the presentations. So I'll try my best to cover at least what I saw as some of the highlights of the talk. And again, the talk itself, there's a Q&A portion, but you can just watch the presentation. It's about 40 minutes or so, and I tend to watch these things at 1.5 speed, so it goes a bit quicker too. So some highlights from this past year. If you don't know, this was the 20th anniversary of WordPress. There were a bunch of celebrations recently for that, so that was highlighted as well. And now that things are getting a bit more normal, whatever that means these days, post-COVID-ish, there were, in 2023, there were 70 WordCamps in 33 countries. So it's good to see that number increasing. And one thing that I assume this is new, because at least they showcased it, is there is a site that you can go to off of WordPress.org. So if you go to WordPress.org/meet, and again, we'll have the links to this in the resources. They've had this neat thing where you can look at any events going on, and you can filter this down to your country. You can filter, you know, if you're interested in person, et cetera, you can look ahead of time. So even us, let's say I hopefully haven't refreshed this since, so here we are too. So it does show a mix of meetup things, in person, et cetera, et cetera. So really a great resource, I think, to, you know, beyond what you see in the dashboard. So for many people, you know, that's a great place to look and see what's in your area. This will give you an idea of everything happening. So especially in the online presentation days like we're still in for our group, I think it's a great way to discover new groups and things that may be of interest. So check that out. Again, free, WordPress.org/meet. One other cool thing they talked about, and maybe we'll dive into this more in the future, but one thing I've certainly heard in the past when people ask about WordPress, people who are not familiar with it, they're like, oh, WordPress, what is that? Or kind of what, you know, there's some skepticism sometimes about what you can do with it and the power of it, et cetera. Well, they've actually created this thing called the WordPress Showcase. So again, you go to WordPress.org/showcase. And what this is these are examples, and I assume this is going to be, you know, maintained on an ongoing basis, but it's a great way if you're talking with clients or just trying to get ideas of, you know, these are sites that are really large, national, you know, well-designed sites that are built in WordPress. So again, I think it's just a good way to reinforce to people that this is a, you know, enterprise-wide tool, and, you know, that it definitely has a lot of power to it. It's not just something for hobbyists and bloggers, et cetera, although it does, you know, serve that audience too. So again, something to look at maybe in the future. We can look at some of these examples. I know, like, there was a big talk at WordCamp US about NASA using WordPress for one of their sites. So again, this is a great showcase of those kind of places. This one we've talked about in the past, so I won't show it right now, but something to check out that's having increasing feature updates. And Peter, this is one too that maybe in the future, as we show a tool, a tip or something, is worth exploring a bit more, because it's even changed since I think we first showed it in the summer. But WordPress it has this beta thing right now called Playground. So it's a neat idea where it's basically you can spin up a WordPress site temporarily. That's the one thing about it, temporarily in your browser. You don't even need hosting. You don't need to load a single piece of software. So as long as you're using a web browser that's compatible, and I assume most people are using something like Chrome, etc., this will fire up, and I'll just show a real quick peek of it. This will fire up a website. So here in my browser, it'll create one for you, and you can see it has a full WordPress dashboard. But the neat thing that they've added, so this has been around since I think they first created it. The neat thing they've added is now you can actually do a lot more customization of this. So let's say you want this running as an older version of WordPress, or let's say you're testing something out and you want to test out a PHP version, etc. This is awesome. You don't need a staging environment just to do minor testing. Again, I'm sure there's caveats of how much you can do with this, but for some quick testing or quick demos like what we do in these meetups, I think it's a great sandbox environment. So try that out, take a look at it. I think, again, it seems like there's also a news page associated with this too that shows you like new features they've added to it. So I'm going to close the tab though, because I can actually hear it's making my browser hum a little bit. So it is a resource thing, so be careful to have 50 tabs open when you do that. But
Hey Ray, real quick on
sure.
that. So, the one major thing, caveat with Playground, which is great. I actually bring it up in one of my slides. So
Cool.
good, we can save some time. But yeah, if you refresh your browser, it's gone. So
Yeah, exactly. So that's it. But you
yeah,
can, I believe you can install plugins on it as well.
yeah,
So if you create something, you can export out what you've
yes.
created and save a snapshot that way. But yes, we'll talk about exporting more a little bit later too. So Playground, neat thing to check out, again, especially for when you're demoing and playing around. All right, so then a lot of time was spent talking about the phase 3 of Gutenberg. So for folks, maybe even if you go back to one of our most recent presentations, I think it's what we covered, WordPress 6.3 maybe, or 6.4, one of the more recent releases. We talked about the roadmap of WordPress, specifically Gutenberg. So we're still in this phase 3, which is around the collaboration phase. I'm sorry, phase 3 is kind of now starting. Phase 2 is around the block editor and those kind of things. So what phase 3, what's exciting, coming very soon, it sounds like in 2024, and some of this is available in beta, is first off this idea of live collaboration. So if you ever worked on Google Docs or Google Sheets with others, it's that kind of idea, but for your website. Again, for people just working on a site strictly themselves, probably not that exciting, but for folks who've collaborated on sites before, it's great that this is finally coming there. So again, multiple edits by multiple users is allowed. And then this idea of workflows, which kind of ties in with collaboration, but one of the things they mentioned is how it's going to be leveraging patterns a lot more, and patterns are going to be improving, was my take on this. So for folks, obviously are familiar with blocks, hopefully, within the block editor. So you can save blocks. You can also save blocks as patterns. But the idea is really thinking about, as you're building a site, having kind of higher level widgets, if you will. And widgets is probably the bad word, but kind of building blocks of your site. So blocks are probably the most granular level of what you're building on a site. So this idea of patterns will allow you to kind of group together blocks like you can today, but also apply design and styling to a pattern level. So just, I think more to come on that as we see it, just kind of thinking about, especially when they talk about workflows. Workflows might be at more the pattern level as opposed to the more granular level. One interesting enhancement is today in WordPress, when you save something as a pattern, you can save it as, let's say, or even just a button. You can save it as a global, global pattern. And so what that means is every time you add that button to different pages, it'll be the exact same color, text, it's the font, et cetera, et cetera. Or in today's world, if you don't want it to be global, you can then remove that, in which case it's now completely separated from the global pattern. Well, now they're talking about introducing something called pattern overrides, which is something in between. It's kind of a hybrid. So let's say that you want to retain all the styling of that button, but you want to change the text on it on a particular page. Well, this is what this allows you to do. It allows you for that instance to override a certain property, in this case, the text, just for that instance, but keep everything else global. So it's a neat idea. Again, if you're a developer and familiar with object-oriented programming, it's kind of overrides. That's basically what they are. Custom fields, well, they didn't touch upon this too much, but as people know today, if you're not using a plugin like advanced custom fields, if you're just using the core custom fields, they don't really integrate very well into WordPress itself. You know, again, the custom fields are there, but you have to like basically put in almost short codes to get the data pulled into your poster pages. Well, I think this is something coming up soon where there's going to be better integration into the core blocks with at least the WordPress custom fields, which is very exciting. All right, and I'm going to try to get through these kind of quick because I don't want to be reading slides. Some other things too, performance improvements are coming. One thing that's really neat, again, just this is probably really bleeding edge, but similar to what we looked at for Playground of, you know, spinning up something in the browser, it's this idea of the interactive API. And they had a really neat demo, which I'll just share real quick on what this could look like. But the idea behind this is, you know, if you think about from a web, for people who are familiar with at least like the web architecture, you know, these days, especially, you know, they talk about like rich web clients, which has been a thing for quite a while, but a lot of what you're seeing in your browser is almost an application. And you don't necessarily need to keep making calls back to the web server to pull down data because a lot of what you're looking at really doesn't change. So the idea of this interactive API, it's kind of like what people are doing with REST, et cetera, but it's having this client-side navigation so you can build faster websites because the page won't reload. So they built this really cool example of a movie database. So this is all built, again, it's probably going to break at some point because it's still a demo in beta. But the neat thing is, if you look at the speed of this, so I'm going to click on, I don't know, 12 Angry Men. It's practically instantaneous. I'm clicking on things, it's practically instantaneous. I won't go to The Exorcist because that's a scary movie. But if I go back here, even searching in here, so I search for Godfather, I mean, it's lightning fast because a lot of the data and object model is loaded. It's just getting it from what's cached, I'm using that word loosely, in the browser. So again, this is something I assume from most of us, we would see the benefits of this as block developers and theme developers and others implement these APIs. And again, it seems like it's kind of early days in it, but it's very exciting. So from a user standpoint, I mean, this is practically game changing because things will look more like apps really, as opposed to you click on something today, you wait for the web to, you know, pull your data down, et cetera. So more to come on that. And kind of finally, I think, the whole admin UI, we touched upon this, I believe, last major WordPress release when we covered that. As folks know, the WordPress when I talk about the admin UI, let me see if I have one up real quick over here. Sorry, just give me 1 second. No, this is my other one. But as folks know, if you sign into WordPress itself, that whole you know, we have plugins, users, et cetera, that really hasn't changed in quite a while. It's definitely showing its age. So there's some talk about doing some UI overhauls to that. So make it look kind of more like the full site editor UI, but also allow people to customize what they want to see there and have the idea of, I forget what they call it, but it's like basically grouping things together at a bit of a higher level. So that should be good for everyone who has to maintain a WordPress website. And kind of finally, I won't spend a lot of time on this because this will be my contribution from the grab bag, but if people recall, probably 3 or 4 years ago, I think it was right around when Gutenberg first came out, maybe it's 5 years ago now, at one of these State of the Word talks, the message was to learn JavaScript deeply. That's because people are getting ready to start doing what the block editor is doing now. So the message from yesterday's State of the Word was learn AI deeply, and we'll talk about that in the grab bag. So some neat things that were showcased, and I'll talk about this in more detail, but this idea of playground blueprints, so an ability to basically generate a WordPress website, you know, using user prompts. But But really, I think the message of this, and I hope I will share this as well shortly, is around AI. A lot of people are always skeptical and fearful of AI, but I think if you look at it from an optimistic standpoint, there is the opportunity for AI to be thought of as like a personalized tutor, productivity enhancer, and really a complement to anyone who's trying to learn anything, including WordPress. So one other key skill, which again we'll probably talk about in my section, is this idea of prompt engineering. So if you think about today from search engines, the better you get at learning how to put in queries into search engines, and I'm no master. I think Peter, you're more of a ninja at search engine, syntax than I am, because you can put in characters and pipes and all this kind of stuff to really make your search queries very narrow and specific. That same kind of skill set is going to be something very important, I think, for people to learn for AI, because that's going to help improve the results you get out of AI. So that's another thing covered. Let me see if there's anything else. And this final one again, sorry, saving some of the best for last, is this other idea of not just doing this phase 3 of Gutenberg next year, but also starting data liberation. This kind of came out of nowhere, but to be honest, they almost like buried the lead in this. So the idea is today, as many people know, we just talked about this a second ago, getting data out of your WordPress websites is difficult, more difficult than it really should be. And not just out of WordPress. So they're not just talking about WordPress, but also out of other Wix, Squarespace into WordPress. It's very clunky, and sometimes that's done intentionally because they want to keep you locked up. But from a WordPress standpoint, they're going to start introducing some new features coming up in the next year. One is one-click migration. I mean, hopefully we'll see what that's like. Maybe we won't need so many plugins to do those kind of things. That includes exporting as well. And improved copy and paste across WordPress sites. So if you want to keep up with this, again, I won't show this, we'll have a link to it, but this WordPress has created this data migration page. So included in here right now, there's some of these are guides, but you can see this growing over time and some tools. So for those of us, and if anyone's on here still that I'm familiar with who's using Divi, but things like Divi and Elementor, like, hey, how do you get out of those things if you really do want to migrate? So they're starting to create some customized tools for that, which is really neat. So like this, I haven't tried this yet, and obviously it's very beta, so don't use it on your production site now, but I think it's a great thing. It's really looking at the idea of getting out of these walled gardens of website ecosystems and being able to share the data, which you own, you created it. So very exciting. Like I said, I definitely encourage people, go take a look at that State of the Word, go look at the WordPress YouTube channel, and you can watch all the details there. Peter, any questions popped up in the chat about that while I was doing it or no?
No, I didn't see any. Oh, no, just are you sharing your screen? Yes. Yeah, I didn't see any questions. I want to make, kind of a little my comment on this. What was interesting to me and has been interesting to me is this discussion about phase 3. And when it was first described, I was like, this idea of collaboration seems to serve a very specific audience, but it has since really expanded and become far more clear that phase 3 is going to be really good for everybody. The whole, having to look at that interface and then looking at the admin and how it's all connected, it just is going to continue and continue and continue to improve the experience that we have, which I'm really happy about, going from, and yeah, there are parts in the admin that are just so very, very old, and the things that folks have been looking for, and just what's now getting more and more into core, and yet you still have the option for the plugins. Some things are going to be built kind of like what happened with Gutenberg to the block editor, and then full site editing to block themes, and as happening now is there is some building in public. There is some, you do something and all of a sudden, oh, they changed that because they're further tweaking it. The block editor is which I'll talk a little bit about later, just because I always talk about it, is those improvements that just keep making that experience better and better and better. And then just encouraging people, maybe somebody who hasn't used the block editor because their first experience was so painful, and now going, it's just so much better. So we just kind of keep banging the drum on that one. So,
and hopefully what I'd like to do is we, every hopefully every month or so into the coming year is to really showcase these things a bit more, like when they're in beta, just to give people, kind of keep on top of this, because this is a very full agenda. You're right. I was not expecting I was not expecting all this stuff to be announced. So maybe I just haven't been keeping up with it, but it's really it's much more exciting to me than when I first heard like collaboration. I'm like, okay, what is that? But I think there's some great stuff in here that really is game changing. So what we'll try to do for the coming year is, as these pieces are getting more mature, we'll try to showcase them, kind of quickly in our meetups.
Now, and I'm curious if anyone else, I know we don't necessarily open the floor, but if anyone has any comments that if any of this is resonating with them, or that they've seen, if anyone actually saw, and I know a few people would have seen like State of the Word or have been following things, let us know now in the chat or later on when we kind of open up the floor. It'll be really interesting to get some feedback of what you might be interested in or you're underwhelmed about.
Right. So I don't know, do we want to do a tooltips plugin thing? We're going to do that as part of the grab bag. We can
Yeah, we're going to do it all part of the grab bag. It's all going to
okay.
be, yeah.
All right, so give me 1 second. I'm going to bring back up. I need to close some of these browser tabs because I'm going to be all confused. So, all right. Let me real quick. So I'm going to hartfordwp.com. Oh, good, you got the thing updated. Share my screen one more time. All right. So again, for folks who aren't familiar, hartfordwp.com, you can follow along if you like. Here's our slides, our slide presentation format, which Peter put together. So holiday grab bag, just kind of what does it mean? Well, it's the stuff at the end of the year. It's we're sharing gifts, so we may have given, there's some regifting in here of things we probably discussed in the summer, so that's okay. We're all among friends here, so maybe a little regifting, but so we're going to cover just real quick introductions. Hopefully people know us by now. I'm really going to try to control myself. I told my wife today, I went down a rat hole of, once you get into this, I love this stuff. I love the AI thing. So again, I'll probably try to spare you all my enthusiasm and spread it out through the year. But I'm going to talk a bit about AI. WordPress in 2023. Peter's going to be covering these. I assume, right? These aren't me. Some favorite things.
Yeah, right. I didn't see your PowerPoint slides. You covered a lot of it. So take your time on AI. Have fun with it. It's always interesting for folks.
What I'll do is I'll skim some stuff. So I definitely want to make sure we have time. We always kind of lose track of time here because we're presenting. We enjoy this stuff. And I can always come back to things afterwards too. So if folks are interested in anything you see and you want us to dive deeper, let me know. I can come back to it.
Yeah, I'll really want to check the chat to see if anything sparks question or whatever. That's what we're hoping for tonight.
Real quick, again, hopefully most people have heard us before. I'm Ray, one of the co-organizers, been a geek for a long time, using WordPress for a decent amount of time, self-employed, live in Newington, Connecticut, and like I said, I'm a geek. That's it for me. Peter.
Yeah, I'm Peter Ingersoll. I'm in South Windsor, Connecticut. I'm all about WordPress, doing it for a long time. We'll continue to do it. And yeah, it's what I really enjoy doing. So here we are.
So there's a story behind this picture. So besides
Nice.
being awesome looking picture, which is really great. First off, this is generated by AI. That's why it's fitting. So 2023, you're also probably sick of hearing AI, but it's true. If you really look back on it, I would say 2023 wasn't just the year of AI. It was the year AI became mainstream. I mean, you hear about it everywhere, grandma and everyone knows about AI and what is it? It's going to take my job and all that. So a lot of people are fearful of the AI. That's what this picture is trying to indicate. Just real quick aside on this. So I generated this using Microsoft's image generation tool, which really has that DALL-E I'll talk about in the back end. The funny thing though is when I did the prompts, I started off by saying, I wanted a robot with lasers shooting out of its eyes that's destroying a city and had like a 2023 sign. It said, "Oh, that sounds scary," and then it sat there for a couple of minutes and said, "I'm sorry, that violates our terms." Like I tried, like, was it? Is it the laser eyes? Is it the destroying cities? I tried everything. I had to do something similar, but start from scratch. So again, back to the whole thing about prompts and being good at them. I wasn't that good at my prompts, so. Again, I don't think of AI just as I said, and I don't think WordPress is thinking of AI in scary terms. I think we're looking at it in terms of this has gotten to the point now where it is it's the real deal, and it's still early days, so it's very exciting, I think, in terms of what it can do, at least from a website standpoint, and certainly other things. So real quick, when we talk about the good AI, there's lots. AI itself is a very deep field. What we'll be primarily talking about, or I'll be primarily talking about, I'm sorry, is generative AI. So again, these are the tools that can create new content. We showed this already a bit in our summer sessions and things, given some demos on this, but these you can create like text, images, like I just showed, based on prompts, based on language prompts from person. So you don't need to be a developer, etc. You can just put in words, and just like you do a search engine, things will get generated for you. So some popular examples of tools that you can try out. So ChatGPT is the most commonly known one. That's really like a general purpose AI tool. There's more specific ones, and this doesn't even cover all. There's hundreds of them, more, probably get to thousands these days. But for image creation tools, DALL-E, just like Salvador Dali, Midjourney, those are probably the two best known ones. I'll show quick examples of these later too. So Jasper AI. So now we're getting to more specific types of AIs, more focused AIs. So Jasper AI is like a marketing focused content creator. Copilot, this one created by GitHub. So it's a coding focused tool. We'll talk a little bit more about how these things work and how they differ from ChatGPT. So plenty of examples out there. And most of them are free or have some kind of free trial. Try them out. I'm signing up for everything just to see, play around while they're still free. You got nothing to lose, except getting your time, getting lost in these things. So, what does it mean for WordPress? So how does this really affect WordPress? Well, it's in the news, and guess what? Everybody is racing to figure out how to incorporate AI into their products. So it's not just WordPress. If you think about Gutenberg and the block editor 5 years ago, AI was barely even mentioned. I mean, it was around, but back then, WordPress was in some ways being reactive to the popularity of Squarespace, Wix, and those kind of platforms. Well, now that I think WordPress is mostly-ish caught up to, at least from a user interface standpoint, mostly caught up to those other tools, they're all now rushing to say, hey, how can I incorporate AI into the website creation process? So it's not just a WordPress thing. So here's just some examples. Again, as time permits, we can play around and show some of these things, and hopefully I will do some quick demos. But so how can you use it in WordPress? Well, you can generate text content. So for example, blog post titles, blog content, post content, etc. You can do things like improve existing content. So finding typos, improving spelling, grammar, tone, clarity, etc. Again, at the click of a button using AI. Generating images, etc. So a featured image, content images, just like I did with DALL-E, but doing it incorporated into WordPress as opposed to going out, creating something, pulling it back in. So think of this as more, the future is going to be more integration into WordPress. Code generation, we'll talk about some products that are already doing that too. So you don't have to be a nerd like myself to knowing CSS or JavaScript. You can use AI prompts to really generate code to make your site behave and look the way that you want it to. And then here's really the holy grail, the dream, entire website generation through prompts. So that could be a single page or entire websites, and that's not that far away. And right, in fact, demos of that are already happening. So again, with all this, I'm not an investor trying to, there's no sales pitches like we said, so take it with a grain of salt. These are early days for some of these things, but the future moves fast, is what Ferris Bueller, I think I said. So, it's like this is going to change a lot by the end of next year. So I think a lot of things will be greatly improved. So real quick, and again, I want to get out of slide mode in a second here. But today, right now, again, if you're using some of these page builders, they're also rolling these features out. And in fact, I would say they are working faster than WordPress core, because they can. I mean, they were faster at doing a lot of the improvements around full site editing. They were faster at doing drag and drop building because they're private companies, and they don't care about, not they don't care, but they don't have as many concerns about breaking, thousands of websites if they change an interface. So They're moving forward very quickly. So just two examples, Divi. So Divi, if anybody uses that, Divi already offers this as a service right now. So it works within Divi's code module. It generates code for you if you want it to, and generate HTML, CSS. And the thing about this is because it's working under from the way these AIs, a lot of them work is that they're basically fed a bunch of data. Like their language processors, LLMs, language learning models. Well, this thing only has to learn Divi. It knows Divi, knows HTML and all that. So when you prompt it for things, it'll work within that context. So as opposed to giving you a generic bunch of CSS or HTML, it'll give it to you specifically for classes that Divi already has or modules that Divi already has. And this is something you can try out right now. It's already live. Again, the costing of these things, I tried to include it as best as I could find it. Some of these have Black Friday deals and all that, so take that with a grain of salt. But it's around like $13.50 per month. I mean, for some people, it probably sounds like that's way too much. But if you're, let's say, working in an agency or freelancer, building a lot of sites every month, if this saves you time, that $13.50 is well worth that price. Elementor, again, it's very similar kind of functionality that they're doing. They're also starting, I think theirs is like coming up more forward in phases. So they're going to do something about AI-based image generation as well, incorporating that into the tool. So I think their price is a bit cheaper, at least right now. There's like a $3 tier and an $8.50 tier. And some of these too, you'll notice this in general, a lot of these AI tools, they'll give you credits. And that's because a lot of them in the back end, they're all using the same APIs to call ChatGPT. It's an open AI. So they want to throttle you on that. So if you're a small time user, you won't use as many credits, et cetera, et cetera. It's kind of like if you've ever used, what's the one, like Smush, those kind of image compression tools. A lot of times they'll charge you credits depending on how frequent of a user you are. And then kind of finally, Cadence, one of the tools that we often promote here again, and it's a great tool. The free version of Cadence is an excellent tool for its price. But if you go with the pro version, they're adding stuff, I believe, very soon. I'm not sure if it's in Cadence right now, but this is around the idea of the starter templates. This is really exciting too. So the idea is you go through some questioning prompts. So the example that they showed was, it kind of you kind of use in Squarespace. I haven't built a Squarespace site in a while, but it's like, what kind of business are you? What's your primary focus? It's prompting you with questions, so you don't have to even learn necessarily all the nuances of being a prompt engineer, whatever that term was. But the more information you put in, the more you talk about the colors and the palettes and the tone and all that kind of stuff, behind the scenes, it's pulling content and generating placeholder. Again, a lot of this is placeholder content for you, so that when you see your templates now, it'll give you 5 different options for a homepage, but it will include images that are relevant to you, not just placeholder images. Like if you ever download templates today, they're all kind of weird, that come from stock photos and stuff. This will at least find ones that should be a little bit more relevant to your website. So really exciting stuff. Again, that's something that's in the works or right around the corner, I believe, with a Cadence Pro subscription. This one too, as far as I can tell, I don't know if you've been reading about this one, Peter. I don't think they're charging separately for it right now. I'm not sure if they will in the future, but this might be, if you have I think I bought the lifetime license a couple of years ago. I believe this will be included as just part of that.
Yeah, it'll be included with, I believe, and Sue, who's also joined us, might have even some insights just because of how much she pays attention to Cadence and Solid WP, which is part of that organization. But yeah, I think they're trying to keep it all within the licensing you have. Obviously, they have to pay attention to the amount of credits that are getting used, because for as you described it. And I think there's going to be some level that will still remain free. I heard that today. I wasn't expecting that, but maybe I wasn't paying as much attention to that because I also have the premium version too.
Yeah.
So
cool. So I'm going to I'm really going to try to be good about this. I swear. I'm going to try to keep this down to 5 to 6 minutes. So I apologize. This is going to be a whirlwind demo. I mean, I hate to even call it a demo, but if we have time at the end, if there's anything I show that you want me to spend more time on, we can come back to it. But just to show you some examples of things I talked about. So let's start real quick with image generation. So this is what I use to create the scary robot in the beginning. There's a couple of different ways you can get here, but again, free Copilot. So there's a little confusing. This is the Microsoft Copilot, not the GitHub Copilot. I don't know why they did that, but if you look at this, what this allows you to do today, and they're setting this up to be a little bit more user friendly, is you can even start by giving it some context, like, I want you to write code for me. I want you to write, summarize text for me, etc. So this is becoming like a Swiss Army knife thing. And in here, this is where I had my, I don't know if I had it in here. Yeah, here we go. So create that image of a goat with, I don't know, this is their example, goat in a soccer jersey or something. Maybe it's in here. So anyways, just giving it prompts, and then it created, here's my, the giant robot with lasers. Oh, that sounds scary. You can't do that. But when it created the image, I was able to download it. And one of the questions I had immediately, I don't know if we have any graphic artists on here, is, okay, what's the licensing, what's the attribution and all that? Well, apparently behind the scenes, there's a watermark on these images that does say it was generated by AI. So, for what that's worth, I'm sure there's ways that search engines, other things can identify that. So it's not like I'm trying to take credit for that image. So again, free, sign up for it, Copilot. Definitely a nice tool to check out.
Yeah,
This one I won't show because I haven't signed up for it
Brett,
yet.
real
Yep,
quick with
sure.
the Microsoft. Also, if you're a Windows person, you probably already have a Microsoft account, and it works really well within Edge, the Edge browser, which is
Yes.
still seen not necessarily in the greatest light. Is got tons of improvements, and that's what I've been using Copilot in the Edge browser, Bing, Copilot. It's just a super free tool.
Yep, agreed. This other one, I'm just showing it for information purposes. But again, this idea of specialized AI. So now, this is a whole other can of worms. Again, if people want to talk about this later, I'd love to. This is more of a philosophical discussion. But this idea of, now you have a specialized tool that really is AI specific to marketing. So for example, really writing your marketing in the voice of the customer, all the things you've learned. I got a whole bookshelf behind me, all those SEO best practice ways to write things and all that. These tools will help improve that. So they say, again, your mileage may vary on this. Where this may go long term too, and if we have time at the end about speculation of the future, is a lot of the SEO tricks that people have done over the years and best practices. Boy, I'm curious what that's going to look like in another year or two as these systems get better at doing that stuff, and as search turns more into AI search. So things about indexing and putting your tags and all this stuff, I think that's going to become completely irrelevant in very near future. But anyway, so this is another tool, Jasper, around if you're looking for something specific to like marketing related. Some other real quick ones. This one I don't believe I shared because I saw this on a WordPress Facebook group or WordPress Reddit group someplace. But somebody had created a specialized AI chat GPT assistant for WordPress. So what they did was, and this one's very unstable. It seems like the guy takes it down sometimes. He fed all of the WordPress documentation as of, I think it was 6.3-ish or so, all the WordPress documentation into this chat assistant so that you can now ask questions that are WordPress specific to it. So, what function should I do, or help me create this? And it won't think, oh, it won't give you JavaScript code. It'll give you PHP or WordPress functions, things like that. So this is a great example, I think, of people are creating this. So he hosted this thing through this Lingo block. So I never heard this before, but it's basically creating custom GPTs. The whole thing is on the back end. It still is kind of calling Chat GPT, but it's being fed a specific data source. So in this case, the data source is WordPress specific. So your answers that come back will be more relevant. I think that's just like that marketing thing. So that's a neat, exciting thing. Real quick one too. So again, this is just an example of tools, tools that are coming out that are also based on AI. So this is a Chat GPT assistant that, just what I talked about, this can be fed the data from your website. So think about that. If you have a website where let's say you're hosting an online store, you have all product descriptions, etc., it'll create a chat bot, but the chat bot has been trained through AI on your content, your products. So any questions it asks, but your mileage may vary what kind of answers you get. It's not just going out to Wikipedia and grabbing stuff. It's looking at your data. So highly specialized. Again, this is just another one too. Again, for bloggers, we have some bloggers here too. This one I just threw this on here is the gray area where I am personally, I don't know. Now we're getting to some squishy waters of, this is the tool that promises to actually generate AI articles and and post them, schedule them to your WordPress blog. And I think that's the kind of thing over time. I don't know. In my opinion, I know nothing about this company, so if anyone's watching, I'm sorry, but I think people are going to see through these kind of things and realize that it's not authentic. It doesn't have that kind of authentic voice to it. Again, this is one we showed before. This is a Quillbot. This is a specialized tool for doing grammar. I also have Grammarly too as a plugin that does something very similar. But the nice thing is you can do things like more detailed, changing tone, etc. And I promised my last minute here. Again, I can get back to any of these tools afterwards if you're interested. This is the one that I believe I did a quick demo on this in in our summer session, excuse me. And so this is Jetpack with built-in AI, but this is Jetpack. I'm using this on the free WordPress.com website. So again, for people who don't know, you can sign up and get a free kind of limited, WordPress.com account. But as part of that, it comes with Jetpack installed. So the Jetpack version that's on WordPress.com includes this AI assistant. So just when you started, I'm sorry, I actually added a block in here. So I had this AI assistant block. And in here, I can say, write me a headline about the benefit of adopting a cat. As you can see, I've got credits here. So the free version is just, you have a certain number of credits, I think per week or per day, etc. But once I type this in, I can also try again. I can change, I can improve it. Let's say I want to make it longer. I can, inline, I can change the tone in here. And I don't think it uses up my credit either until I actually accept it, which is kind of nice. So it's going on and on. So this one, I believe I have a link for the things that it has built into it. So it already has things like grammar built into it. It has things like, again, summarizing, so make longer, make shorter. You can translate things, change the tone, et cetera, et cetera. So it's free on WordPress.com. I believe if you want this on a WordPress.org site, or I'm sorry, just like one of your sites, I believe there is a fee for it. I'm not sure exactly what the fee is. So again, this is just the beginning. This is just the Jetpack one. I'm sure there's plenty of other tools that are doing something similar that are plugins for WordPress. So that's my grab bag to share for now, and I'm gonna stop talking, stop showing slides, and hand it over to Peter. Like I said, any stuff that people are interested later, we can go back and play around with it.
Yeah, we're gonna come back because I got like a whole list of things that I can show. We could spend hours and hours on that one.
And again, back to what I said too, I think a lot of this stuff as it evolves over the coming year, I'd like to do kind of like you do your tooltip spotlight. Maybe every now and then we'll do a quick AI spotlight thing so people can see that kind of stuff too.
And with this group, please let us know too if there's anything you want us to expand on. We might hit on something pretty quick, but and maybe we think we're spending a lot of time and it's less, or we can do a deep dive into one specific area. Please let us know. Yeah. Sue did comment on the with Cadence AI, there will be the
credits,
need to credits, but really cheap. And yeah, a lot of these things, are really crazy cheap compared to like time saved and things like that. So that all goes into it.
If you spare me, so I'll add real quick to Sue's last comment there about Google's AI. Yeah, so Google has also the whole other side discussion about how they kind of got left with a little bit of egg on their face in terms of ChatGPT was vastly more successful than Google ever expected. Now they're kind of rushing to catch up. So Google has an assistant called Bard, and they've released something for just in the past week or so. But one of the things that they're focusing on too is generating. They lost Fortnite too. But they're generating code through it. So as an aside to that, and this is probably a longer discussion in the future, is what happens to development. And there's some discussion. I don't know if Matt said that in the State of the Word thing, but as a developer, I can see development being a developer changing, that you're really working with an AI to now kind of work at a higher level. Again, as a software developer, and there's others here who did it too. I mean, as folks remember way back when we talked about, front page and all that, you had to really get down to code and you have to learn all the syntax. Things have evolved over time. I think where we're going with AI is that you're still going to have software developers, but it's going to be using instead of an IDE to type in your code, you're going to be using an AI tool, and that's what's going to help you refine your code. So exciting times. More to come on that. So sorry, Peter.
Absolutely.
I'll shut it down.
No, that's okay. Mine is really, really fast, and then we're just going to get into the playground here. So let me share screen 2. Okay. So in looking at our meetup write up, we said, looking back at 2023. So you already did a lot of this, but this is 2023 brought 3 releases, and the goal continues to be 3 major releases, a point release every year. I guess part of it, there was talk about 4, and people said, no, please, only 3. There's always a question as to what time of year things should be released. Sometimes things were a little bit too close to the holidays or a Black Friday or things like that. But really, the evolution of WordPress 6.2, 6.3, and 6.4 was the legitimate launch of the site editor, what was previously referred to and still referred to as full site editing, and continuous improvement to the block editor, and that moved on. And then we saw significant improvement to the site editor, based on now the feedback that was coming from the community who were now using it and trying it, and some of the difficulties, but also kind of opening up, more functionality. That said, not all, I still have not adopted block themes yet as part of my workflow, and honestly, you don't have to, and I'll kind of talk about that in a little bit. We saw a few new blocks: footnote block, details block. The details block is nice because it's can be used for things like frequently asked questions and things like that. So and these links, by the way, are just showing that, in case you want to go back and kind of take a look at some of the specific things from that release. And it's always, honestly, a good idea to do that every once in a while, because sometimes we miss something that all of a sudden we'll go, oh, wait a minute. They now have something that does this thing that I'm trying to do, or I'm doing with a plugin, or things like that. So reviewing, what's been added, even if you didn't adopt it right away, and going back, I think is a good practice to have. Our November release introduced the 2024 theme, really good improvements to saving and managing block patterns. We're going to see some of that coming into classic themes. I have a snippet that I use for classic themes. It's definitely works a little bit more seamlessly with a block theme. And then, again, continuous improvements and additions to design tools, having more control over, image tools, and introductions of like a lightbox type feature and things like that. So we're seeing, again, this continuous evolution. The thing that I'm happiest about is 2023 continue to see smoother and smoother use of that block editor. So again, and this is what I mentioned at the beginning, folks who maybe had a terrible experience a few years ago trying the block editor or Gutenberg, now we'll come back and go, oh, this is much easier. And I say this all the time. I go back to my sites built with a page builder, and I find those more difficult to use than now the block editor. It's muscle memory, it's practice, it's all those things. But sometimes I'm like, the difference between it's right there versus, wait a minute, where do I have to go to find that? And it works vice versa for folks who are so used to those. So that's where we get into actually the next slide. I'll just jump right to it, which is the many ways to WordPress, right? So this idea that and I want to say this because, again, it's worth saying. I go to a number of meetups. In fact, some of the folks here, like Laura, Jean, Eric, Sue, we'll see each other in other meetups across the country that using your map, Ray, that you showed that showed the meetups. I go to meetup.com and do searches for different parts of the country and sort them by date and look for the online ones that might work for me. But there's so many people who have such a wide variety of questions. And I think one thing to keep in mind is that there's no one way to use WordPress. There's no best way to use WordPress. And quite honestly, an aside here is, I think, as being somebody so, committed to the WordPress environment for building websites, is the greatest strength of WordPress actually can be considered its greatest weakness at times too, which is because you have so many options, it can get really confusing. People say, oh, when I look at this option or that option, Shopify, Wix, so on, that it's so much easier. Well, it's easier because it's a controlled environment that locks you into very specific things, whereas the WordPress world allows you to really kind of build a lot of different ways. As a developer, there's so many things that we have total control over. You own your data, all those good things. But that also means that you have there's a certain responsibility to know what's going on. But for new users, don't panic. There's plenty of us here to help. There's a lot of, it's just one of the things to get over is the fact that it depends is part of most answers to a WordPress question. They're very, folks will say, well, what's the best? That depends on some number of factors. So the many ways of many combinations for creating include the classic editor, classic themes, right? So the classic editor, if you load the classic plugin to use the old text-based editor, and I'd be curious if anybody is still really kind of locked into that, which is fine, but there's even ways of easing out of that. The block editor in classic themes, that's what I use. That's kind of where I am right now. A page builder within a classic theme, and then when you go kind of full block, the block editor and block themes, and many other combinations. Themes that are so function filled they become their own environment. The Oxygens and Brixie type page builders that kind of take control of some level of admin. But the main thing here is, which we talk about often, is when seeking help, be sure you're looking at a similar WordPress environment or asking or searching for. You do a search for something in WordPress, you might get all kinds of instructions about how to do something Elementor when you're using the block editor or something else, or again, any number you can land on. Right now, I'm finding a lot of help that's all about Brixie because there's, it's resonating with certain developers. But I think it's important to keep in mind and then not panic when you go, my admin pages don't look like your admin pages. There's a lot of reasons for that, plugins, themes, and so on. So it's kind of just knowing that there's so many variations that when you're seeking help, when you're looking for tutorials and things like that, you may have to kind of adapt your thinking to, or at least adjust the way you search for things. I think is pretty important. I did want to touch on WordPress.org and the community. I do recommend signing up for a WordPress.org account. In fact, there's a page. I actually had some input on this myself, which was signing up for the WordPress account. You end up going to this page here. I wish this was a little bit. My link is expired because I have to come back and change that link. I wish this worked a little bit more seamlessly. Finding where you need to log in once you go to WordPress.org or how do I join gets a little. It's not as straightforward. Let me stop going to there and let me go to. Oh, that's their link. Isn't that interesting? Could be something cached in my browser, or I'm already logged in. That's why. Apologize for that. But anyway, joining the WordPress community then gives you an opportunity to do things like really get into the whole process of how WordPress comes to be, how it's made, and then deciding where you might want to contribute, and we can get into some of that kind of through the grab bag area too. That WordPress.org site is it's a site redesign in progress right now. There's many different looks and feels to the way the WordPress.org and make.wordpress.org and learn.wordpress.org kind of all work. We'll see a new redesign. Ray, you mentioned before the showcase. Showcase has been moved front and center, and where Extend is and all those things, how the Make community. So you kind of have to spend some time exploring, and I do recommend spending time exploring make.wordpress.com, which is the area where you see all the teams and groups that are involved with actually making this open source software, and we are using software that's open source, right? So it's being developed by a group of people, some sponsored, many for free, volunteering their time. You don't have to buy WordPress software. The main thing you have to generally pay for is hosting. But there's all kinds of groups and the different teams under in the Make group. So that would be a make.wordpress.org. If you're on wordpress.org, you would find that under community and Make, and that's kind of your starting point there. So I really do recommend going to wordpress.org and spending some time kind of exploring, and then looking at this opportunity to have an account. The benefits of things like, if I go to my plugins and I'm looking at this plugin, but I can save favorites because I'm logged in. I can share those favorites. That's just one small thing. I have a profile. People can find me. I can comment on things that are happening on the Make teams and all. So it's a great way to become part of the WordPress community just by spending more time on .org, getting an account, and then spending time in Make. Learning resources include learn.wordpress.org. The documentation area, and here's something that is kind of interesting. So if we're over here on just, let me just tab back here. If I'm on documentation, this is now, you see the new design. So you have this is one website, but we've got different variations of the new design. The area of all of this that isn't necessarily intuitive right now is the customization. That's where a lot of you might want to, kind of keep bookmarked or something, because when you go to customization, this is all about the stuff that we do as folks who use WordPress. Block themes, managing plugins, the block editor, getting into all the, the default themes, all about block patterns. This is the documentation that I think is probably the most valuable. Sometimes you go into other documentation and it gets a little confusing. So the one that has the most direct application of things we do, I think would be that the customization. But under .org, the documentation, WordPress TV, the WordPress channel on YouTube, which again is a nice place where you can go and see the videos. The state of the word is recorded there. Tons of tutorials that are presented by Learn, that are also on WordPress.tv. So there's a lot of places to find WordPress generated content by volunteers, by people like Laura, who's on this call. She's got some great content out there, and more are coming for reasons that we might talk about in a little bit. Yeah, that doesn't include the many folks who have tutorial sites and blogs, and in our grab bag we could pull some of those things up and show you some of that type of thing, that content. I wanted to make sure that I got, in case you want to refer to, because these questions always come up. These are my favorite theme right now is Cadence and Cadence blocks, but others that I feel good about recommending are listed here. Astra, Generate Press, Blocksy. The new 2024 theme is pretty interesting. A block theme by Brian Gardner, Powder. Mike McAllister has made Ollie. I like those two a lot. Brixie I haven't spent a lot of time with, but it's talked about a lot. And then just Ray, as you had shown before, playground.wordpress.net allows you to give things a try for free, but also InstaWP or TasteWP. We'll see InstaWP showing up more in the plugin repository. It landed as a way of quickly testing plugins without notifying plugin authors that link to go try something was going to be there, and that caused a problem because some plugins are dependent on other plugins or certain environments, things like that. So you might have something that just didn't work. That was taken away. It's now coming back. So in the repository, as an opt-in by plugin developers, they could link to a way to actually try something live for free. And even set up if it needed if the certain dependencies or something like that, set up environments for that to work, link directly out of the WordPress.org repository. For anyone who's not sure what I mean by that, on WordPress.org under Extend, this is where we have our links to themes, plugins, patterns, blocks. So under plugins, this is where you'll find all your the plugins that you can use. We'll spend a little bit more time, I think, here in the grab bag because I want to show you a couple of things there. And then there's themes. So some of my favorite plugins would be, I'm a big proponent of paying attention to accessibility. So the accessibility checker by Amber Hines and Equalize Digital is fantastic. By the way, that NASA website, Amber's company was directly involved with them, and NASA helped fund some further development of the accessibility checker, which is a fantastic thing that we benefit from because NASA, being publicly funded, supported the open source aspect. Accessibility checker does have a paid version, but the free version is phenomenal. And now there's a front end editor, a front end side of it. Fantastic free tool. And for larger organizations, their premium tool is very good. I like simple history is a great way to just quickly look up what's happened on a site. It even says, oh, I can look in the history when a plugin had a notice for an update, or when somebody logged in and did something or changed something. It's a nice little tool. Cadence blocks or generate blocks. Sometimes I use them together and for certain reasons. The admin and site enhancements, a lot of these we've talked about in the past. Advanced custom fields, the block visibility plugin, which was premium and now made free by Nick Diego, who is a great member of the WordPress community, great contributor, sponsored by Automatic. Fluent Form for the free form plugins that I like is Fluent Forms or WS Form Lite. I like Slim SEO. Ray, I think you're a proponent. You like SEO Press. Mm-hmm. Fluent SMTP. There are other SMTP to make sure you're connecting to whatever host you have, but I like Fluent. I'm practiced in it, so it's what I use. The code snippets plugin is free on the repository, except for these have changed in that it's PHP only. There is a premium version. There's also a snippet tool that was purchased by a company that owns a lot of plugins that I like WP Codebox, which is a premium. That's a way of adding snippets. So that's just just throw a bunch of things out that are some of the things that I use. I know those questions always seem to come up, like, well, what do you use for? I didn't get into security plugins or things like that. I use Patch Stack. I think I'm not sure if Eric is still in the call, but we have Eric is well versed. He's somebody who attends some of our meetups, and I see in national other ones. But some of that is handled by hosting, and it kind of opens not a can of worms, but yes, WordFence, Malcare, there's pros and cons. Solid WP has its own security. So yeah, I'm ready to just kind of go in and let's start pulling stuff up. So answering questions, if anybody has anything that they want to look at in more detail that I either mentioned here, or I can literally click on a tab, or I have a note page with all kinds of crazy grab baggy things.
Let's, so Peter, this, again, as I said to folks, these slides are available right now. And in fact, so these are all, I assume these are all links, right, to the tools and plugins?
Yes. Yeah. So anytime you see the blue, so there's a simple history plugin. We'll be sure to capture anything else that gets discussed going forward. But
How
yeah,
about, and this was your last slide or show. Okay. How about we, just so we don't lose time, so I think we've lost time, our past couple ones where we went a little bit over. I'd like to make sure that we get to, I didn't see any questions in the chat right now, but if people are thinking of questions, that I'm gonna, maybe now's a good time to unmute everybody. Sorry, everyone can unmute themselves whenever you like. I just want to make sure we have time for Lori's question, because Lori, you'd reached out before about, remind, so you're volunteering and supporting a website for a place in, was it Glastonbury, I think?
Yeah. So I'm a volunteer for Glastonbury Partners in Planting. It's it's an organization that actually beautifies the town. We provide planters in the center of town. There's an educational garden. There's all kinds of things that we do, mostly in conjunction with the town to, really provide this free, wonderful service to make things look pretty as you walk through Glastonbury, and some other things as well. So I began volunteering, within the last year or two, and they had a website that they've inherited. I'd say probably 10 years ago, they hired a consultant to put together a website for them. And over the last 10 years, there's been people with not much technology background just trying to limp through it. And so I do have some WordPress experience, but it's from about 15 years ago. And I was, a programmer way back, and I've been, trying to do the updates for them. And I really just have some questions. I probably could research them, but
that's what we're here for.
Yeah, okay. So one of the problems that we're having is I put a form out for people to volunteer, and it's getting hit with a lot of spam. So I put in a plugin that to try to help with the spam, and it was anti-spam by Clean Talk. Things are still coming through it. It's not horrendous or offensive. It's just a lot of garbage. So I don't know how to tighten that up, but one of the questions is we have a free version. If I upgrade, say, to the premium, or I think premium would probably be this, actually a practical first step. It seems from looking at it that I'd get some spam protection from just having that paid version. So that's a question.
Let's talk about that one. And again, other folks can unmute themselves too to jump in on their solution. So I'll share my 2 cents, at least some of the sites that I maintain. And again, I don't personally think there's 100% perfect anti-spam solution out there. It's usually belt and suspenders and more suspenders and belts, but so one thing I seems like is you don't have, unless I'm not seeing it, Peter, for that sign up form, I didn't see a CAPTCHA or reCAPTCHA.
Right. Yeah.
So the free version of that plugin you're using, does it include the ability to add a CAPTCHA?
I had looked into it at the time, and we didn't put it in there for some reason. I think it was, this is probably about 6 months ago that I looked at it.
And it looks like you're using, so there's multiple forms on here, or I'm sorry, it's WP forms that you're using, right?
Yep, right.
So I don't know if the free version has that, but that's one thing to look at, is whatever version of WP forms you're having, see if it offers the ability to include CAPTCHA or reCAPTCHA on it. So that is easy. I mean, that you sign up for free. It should have, WP forms is pretty good, I think, about walking you through the steps of how to set that up. But basically, you'd have to set up an account for that, again, a free account through Google. And I forget what version, what's the better reCAPTCHA version. There's one, you have multiple choices. There's the invisible one you can do, so people don't have to click off the CAPTCHA thing. So I would say that's kind of a bare minimum, at least getting a reCAPTCHA on there. And Peter or other thoughts kind of beyond that. So once that's set up, I know there's all the other stuff around, like Fluent Forms has some additional anti-spam protection too, which I find keeps a lot of stuff out, I think, but it's not perfect. I still do get spam coming in.
Yeah, I don't have enough direct experience with WP Forms. The three ones that I use are again WS Form, Fluent Forms, and Gravity Forms. I've had Gravity Forms for years, but just recently let that that subscription go because I use the others. So, and I know, so WP Forms, they may roll things into a premium version. I'm not sure, but I'm finding, there's a couple of links here. Yes, you can certainly put the reCAPTCHA on here. I tend to go through a process of seeing what they offer, then under WordPress.org, doing a quick look at plugins. And searching for plugins, by the way, is a challenge. I want to see this changed. You can search for something that you know the exact name of, but if it has a space and you don't put you may not see it. It's
Right.
WordPress.org needs badly a much more friendly way of searching. But if WP Forms.
But also, Laura, you said that you did install a spam plugin, but I'm wondering.
Yeah, and you know what? I got a free version and it just expired. I mean, a trial version, it must have been.
This one here.
And I just noticed it expired. Yeah.
Is it the one from Clean Talk? Yeah.
Yep.
That's this one here, Clean Talk.
Some of that, and that's the thing too. Like, I just wanted to see this. So this one says about, because again, you can get spam a lot of different ways. You get it through comments, you can get it through other things too. So hopefully, getting one that works with your Forms plugin is key. And then the other thing too. Again, if you go to the premium version of your Forms plugin, they might have, like as you said, they may have additional protections. Like the Fluent Forms one I'm using, I just looked at it while we were talking. It has like honeypot is the other thing. So it's supposed to be another hidden field behind the scenes so that bots can't trigger it. So you may want to, again, look at what the form plugin provides, if it's worth getting a paid version just to get additional protection. But especially the reCAPTCHA, I would say at a minimum, I would say try to get that added. So
now, real quick, and I honestly don't know enough about this. I do know, and again, I think Eric left, but this got mentioned another one. So I go to some meetups where there is a strong attraction to Cloudflare, which is a place that you can use as for your domain name service for your for CDN. It basically goes between a person making a request of your website and your website. It sits in between. And there's this thing called Turnstile, which is a way of stopping spam. Ray, I haven't used it. Maybe we spend some time and experiment with this, but apparently one of the neat things is now Turnstile has been made even easier on WordPress, and it may even be this plugin here because it's new and this has only got 400 installs. But that's an intermediary that stops it right in its tracks before it even gets to your website. But security, anti-spam, like the honeypot thing has never really worked very well for me. For comments, anti-spam B works great, but I don't think it works with forms. But yeah, that kind of annoying, but yet necessary reCAPTCHA may help you.
Okay.
Yeah.
Would there be any benefit in, we have a free version, and being a volunteer organization, we're trying to do things as cheaply as possible, but
Absolutely.
would there be any benefit of going to the premium, more of a paid version?
Generally ease, right? That's what I find.
Yeah.
Like if
you
something
get more features too. I mean, beyond that, that's the thing too. If it's just for spam, maybe not. But if there's other features that are part of that, like for example, let's say that you want to have the ability to integrate the Forms plugin to a Google Doc or something like that. Those kind of things are things that maybe are only offered in the premium. I think you'd have to look at it and see, is it, what else is worth it? But I'd say try as much free stuff as you can. You said before they shell out money too. So at least if you can add the, I don't know if the free version of Fluent Forms has, I guess it does have reCAPTCHA in the free version too, I guess, huh?
Yep.
Yeah, I like Fluent Forms.
I might have just lost steam on doing that and, just revisit, kind of afraid to
If it's a fairly
dive into
simple
it,
form,
experience them, but
Yeah.
yeah, if it's a fairly simple form, I mean, you can definitely try another plugin like Fluent Forms is very easy. If you use WP Forms, I don't think you have any problem figuring out how to use Fluent Forms. It's a drag and drop form builder, and yeah, it looks like the free version. You'd have to verify that, but I think it does offer reCAPTCHA.
So that's, that is another option, just to say, I don't know how many forms you have on this site, but there's nothing even saying that WP Forms is the place to go if you get, recreating this form is
yeah,
not super hard. I mean,
yeah. So we probably want to have another form or two, but I wanted to kind of get this settled down. And what happens is we probably, for every 10, spam things that come through, we'll get one authentic one. So but it's nothing really offensive. It's just garbage really that's coming through.
yeah,
So
and you know what, that's
around.
an important thing to say real quick, is that sometimes too, in terms of the amount of time it would take you to figure that out and what other priorities you might have taking on a new site, it might be like, let's fix this other thing, so
Yeah. Let's keep it updated, right?
yeah.
Okay. So maybe what I need to do is look again at the features that I could see with the premium version that interest me, and rethink that. But I just assumed that a paid version would give us a lot more.
Yeah.
Just overall ease of use and more options for themes and that type of thing. But
Yeah.
okay, I think that I'll try your suggestions, and then maybe I'll come back and ask again if
Was that the only question you had, Lori, or were there any other about the site?
Not really. At some
All right.
point I think we're going to want to move to a different template or whatever, but I think just if I attend these meetings I'll probably get some inspiration.
Yeah.
And
I mean, the good thing too is, especially like I said, we've talked about this before, but if you want in the future, we can certainly experiment a little bit. If you're willing to drive and you sign in, we'll let you share your screen. But especially, I think even switching to a more modern theme,
yeah.
and you could preview it too. That's a great thing about WordPress. You can preview to see what it looks like. I bet you the site itself, just switching to a free theme, like we often say Cadence or stuff like that, but Astra, one of those other ones, I think that alone will transform the look of the site. I mean, people will be wowed by it. And they say, "Oh my, what did you do?" It's like, you didn't do anything. You took a free theme. It's going to change the whole look of everything. So that's something to play
Would that
around
be
with.
a lot of work, or would it be
No, that's
no?
the magic of it. It's like literally downloading, a more modern theme. Like I'm just throwing Cadence out there, or Astra is another good one too. And in the back end of WordPress, I don't know, Peter, if you have a site up or not, but you just basically can preview what it looks like, and you would see just, without even activating it, you'd be able to take a look and see if it's something you like. But it could make a drastic difference in seconds. And then if you like it, just again activate it, and then keep the old one around in case.
Oh, right. Okay. Yep.
Yeah, so he's doing a live preview on this site, so you can just play around with different things. I mean, that's it. Like the styling is going to completely change. Obviously, there's some pieces that may need working. Let's say the headers, especially headers and things like that, are probably going to look a bit wonky, maybe. But that's minor stuff to go in and change. But especially if that site has a lot of blog posts, I mean, that's going to, I think, look quite different in a new theme. So
Yeah, and just because I feel obligated to, I would pay attention to accessibility. I imagine the partners in planting in Glastonbury, knowing the area, you have some older folks who are involved.
Yeah.
That the contrast, the one thing I would change right away is that this green on white is such a low contrast that it's not that easy to see. I use a tool, some of the things in my toolbox, so in our grab bag, I do use Wave. I've talked about that a number of times. There's a website that you can go to and just do it, or use a browser extension, which just allows me to just hit click, and then I can see what errors, the form label errors,
Okay.
contrast error that has a lot to do with the fact that this link green on white is just, there's not enough contrast there. And that's just a matter of changing that usually in the theme to a
Right.
darker green, for example. And then
Right.
you take care of that real quick.
Yeah. One of the things that we hoped so the update news, that they have been using that to communicate, you know, events or things that are going on. And I advocated to just put a Google Calendar. You know, we have to share a calendar in multiple places, not just here. And so I thought, let's just share a Google Calendar. But what we can't do is we can't search that calendar.
Yeah.
So it's been, you know, the calendar events, we have that now.
You can't search.
Is there any calendar, like searchable calendar you could recommend?
I'm sorry, you said can't search it. You mean through the website? You can't search it?
Yeah, well, if you go to calendar of events right here, and you have to go back a month or two to see some events. So if you just go back to say over on the left, and that where it says GPIP calendar.
I mean the calendar. So that's kind of the challenge too. And you know, if others have great answers, I'd love to hear it. But like the nicer calendar tools, like the events calendar is probably one of the most popular ones for WordPress. Looks beautiful. You know, the free version is great. But what I've found is if people are used to using a Google Calendar, shared Google Calendar, let's say the group does that, I haven't found, at least me personally, a good way to keep that in sync with the events calendar. It's kind of like your calendar is either in WordPress or it's in Google Calendar. It's not great to keep them, you know, in sync between the two. But if there's only one person maintaining the calendar, if they're comfortable with doing it in WordPress, then, you know, the events calendar is certainly going to look.
Can that events calendar be shared, embedded in another platform? Do you know, like, for example, we use Facebook, you know, probably not.
Not the events calendar itself. No.
Link to that content on your site, so it's living as a WordPress thing, which then this other solution that I like probably wouldn't make a lot of sense. One of the ways I've been getting away from like the events calendar plugin, and I like this thing called Pi Calendar that can turn any post into an event. In other words, you can have, whether it's news and whatever you want to show up in the calendar, once you activate the Pi Calendar plugin, pulling out of my grab bag, staying to the theme, you can now, the Pi Calendar actually gives you, I wonder if there's an image down here. In your interface, you can say, okay, you basically, when you're adding your post, now you're saying show on the calendar, and then you're saying what start date, what end date for any post that you choose to. And what this does is it allows you to just stay within the post. You know, I'm adding a new site on post, but I want this one to show up in a calendar format. Literally.
I think it's the sharing that then out to Google or Facebook. I think that's still the big challenge.
The thought was, let's do the calendar once and share it in multiple places, but it's not as easy as it sounds.
No, not without, again, connecting. That's the one tough thing. It's the integration, especially once you start talking Facebook. Facebook, unfortunately, is almost a one-way street in a lot of ways. It's easy to get stuff in, getting stuff out. It's not the nicest thing. Yeah,
right.
if others have, like, you throw it into the chat, others have ideas for like I guess that one, the pretty Google Calendar, something that looks a little bit better than an embed. But yeah, the ability to search, I think, is going to be the tough part.
Yeah, there's definitely ways to use the fantastic Google connectivity using the API. So it's not like, oh, put in the frame, you know, this embedded calendar, but it's rather go look up the data and populate this calendar, you know, on WordPress that also lives as a Google Calendar that then might be used somewhere else. So that feels like for you kind of the smartest way to go. I don't have enough direct experience with this, but I'll give it a play and see if we can't figure it out. But yeah, there are definitely plugins to connect to the data versus just embedding a calendar, and the difference again being one basically puts it in a box. The other one
Yeah.
just uses the data then to generate.
Yeah, I got you. Okay, great. Well, thanks.
Yep.
So just a question again, on if I wanted to play with a different
Theme.
theme, right? Is that what?
Mhm.
If I want to, yeah, try another template.
Right.
Could I do that on mine, on the site, or do I have to go to a sandbox to do that?
You can do it on the site as long as you don't activate it. So Peter, do you mind showing that real quick again? So it's in the appearance themes section of your site.
Yeah,
Yeah, so if you download a theme, you at that point you can just preview it, like I think Peter had showed earlier, and then preview won't affect anything live. And if you like it,
Yeah.
then you can activate it. If you don't like it, you can just delete the theme afterwards, and
yeah, okay.
doesn't do
Okay, so
anything.
I can do that right in the site, and I
Right.
just have to get that cadence.
Right. Even if you, and the thing too, even if you activate it and you find later, oh no, it looks like things are broken or things don't look good, you can just go back to the one you had previously and activate that one instead, and doesn't break anything.
Okay.
This is our, I got to update it, obviously. We use this site to build over time, showing different things. So Cadence is the active theme, but if I want to live preview it, I can take a look and see how far I need to go. What needs to be changed. Like right now, I'm previewing Astra. And the main thing I would have to change, and again, since we use blocks building it, the main content looks almost exactly the same. Some, in the customizer, you would change the colors and the fonts if that need to be, and those become universal. The main content works, and then things like the header, if you have a primary navigation, and it uses, and spending time there, but you can see how far you could get with that. I was going to check to see what your site is built with. Do you know who hosts it?
Eastbury Designs.
So the idea being, if you have a web host, so again, grab bag tools I use, builtwith.com, and wpthemedetector.com are used with regularity to see kind of what's behind the curtains and under the hood of a website. WordPress, jQuery, Facebook. So it's with, looks like it's probably with GoDaddy.
Yeah.
Web hosting.
GoDaddy, yeah, that's right. GoDaddy's behind them. Yep.
Yeah, and so one thing you might want to check with that hosting package to see if you have, if a staging site is included in that with that, and what that means is a site that you can work on that doesn't affect your main site until you decide to push something live.
Okay.
Just take what you've
Like a
experimented.
development site type of thing.
Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
yeah. They usually, I think for GoDaddy, it's more that premium tier that you have to pay for to get staging sites. So yeah, if they're on the low tier, they probably don't get that. But yeah, it's cool. Let's jump to what was that? Gene had a question. So Gene, you had a question about user role capabilities. I'm reading from the chat. You made 2 custom user roles. Tell us a little more about this. So what you're trying to separate the people from being able to view each other's posts or edit?
Oh, they can view each other, but there's a little bit of a conflict there, and I wouldn't put it past someone to go in and change the post of the other one. That I would give you more details, but this is being recorded and I don't want to say anything.
For the changing thing, I think Peter showed there's the ability to track and audit that. But I think you basically want the separate, so you want them both to be able to post and edit, but not each other's.
Right. So user 1, when he logs in, he sees, all the post things. And when user 2 goes in, he sees the post too, but he doesn't see the posts that user 1 put in.
Right.
Am I making that? It's hard to say without saying exactly what this.
Well, and I think so. Yeah. So I'm glad you brought this up. So normally, if you just wanted them to be able to only create posts, and let's say not delete posts and do that kind of thing, then normally they would be, I think that's the author one, right?
Yeah.
So author, I believe, is just their own posts.
They can only touch their own posts. And
Yeah, that's right. So there's already a role built into WordPress for exactly that. So they might be able to, I'm not sure authors might be able to see the other people's posts, but I don't believe they can
Definitely.
edit them.
Okay, so an author would be able to, well, one of the roles is to be a form jockey. That's the user role I made, is a form jockey. So
Okay.
that
Yeah.
person can go in and post forms. They can look at the submissions. They can go in and change the form if they want to say, go, here's the closing date to apply for the job.
When you say
Whatever.
forms, though, now you're talking about like a form plugin kind of thing?
Yes and no, but the
Okay.
forms are posted through a post.
Right, but does this person need the ability to then look on the back end of the form plugin of like entries that are submitted?
Yes, and they already have access to that. It's just that after they build the form, I want them to make a post to
Right.
say, here's a job application, blah, 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 and then
Yep.
there's the form,
Right,
and what it is, it's a post. So
Right.
with the post would be like administration, the category would be administration. And that way that you have a page of all the forms with a link to which form you want to go to.
Yeah.
And that's that one person's job. It's not the other person's job who's doing PR and saying, here's what's wonderful about this, and here's
So that
what's
person,
going
the
on.
reason I ask is because these roles, like if you're an author, you'll have the ability to create posts. What you won't have the
Okay.
ability, I don't believe, is they wouldn't have the ability to see like plugins installed.
Correct.
So,
You don't.
so let's say Gravity Forms was a plugin that you're using for job applications.
Yeah.
Somebody with an author role would not be able to see, I don't think they'd be able to see the plugin itself or even see the admin side of Gravity Forms. So that's the one limitation of the built-in roles in WordPress. They're really to manage pages and posts, not so much if you have some kind of hybrid thing of, let's say you want a person who could only publish posts, but you wanted them to be an admin who can manage Gravity Forms. That doesn't kind of exist out of the box.
I use the plugin, the user role editor,
This one here.
and I was able to, for the one person, the one
Oh, there it is,
to
yeah.
do the
Yeah, I just saw
handle
that
the
thing up
forms.
there too.
So
Yeah, because it looks like I used Peter scrolled by the one of the features, but it looked like it actually had that ability to manage and hide. Go up a little bit there about manage and hide certain menu items as well too. Block selected
Yes.
admin menu items for the role.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that worked great. So for this, my form jockey role, the only thing that person can see, whoever has that role, is, sorry, just clicked on the wrong one. Oh, don't tell. Is they can see posts, they can see Gravity Forms, and now when I added this second blog, now we can see the administrator's blog, and I don't want him to see that. I don't want him to have access to that, and it's not even showing up in the user role to turn it off.
Hmm.
In this plugin, in this user role editor plugin.
Yes, I can see it on the left-hand side, the custom post types. Because I tried making a custom post type for this this blog, and it's showing up on the left, but it doesn't show it up on the right, where you can check what ones you want to turn off or allow. Everything's turned off, and you check which ones you want to have allowed.
Yeah, I've never used this plugin, so I'm not.
Okay.
It's been a while. Yeah, so there's some things that are built into a certain level And
Okay.
other when you're using something like this, you can get incredibly granular, as you can see here. You know, you're literally kind of basically setting filters of what you can and can't do. If you're allowing somebody to look at posts, but then what you probably want to have, if it's here, is just like the difference between being as a role, the difference between an editor and an author. So an editor can manage posts by anybody, an author can only manage posts by themselves. I mean, everybody could see it because on the front end you could see it anyway. You could see things in a list. I think the point is that I'm assuming the point is that you don't want them to be able to touch it. And in that case, it's the difference between an author and an editor. Now on the user role, it's going to be basically wherever in all of this, it's the difference between saying allow the editing of everybody's posts versus allow the editing of only
You can
that
create,
author's posts.
can I grab, Peter, I'm gonna grab sharing for a second, if you don't
Yeah,
mind.
absolutely.
I just installed this plugin on my demo site, but it looks like, Gene, did you actually create a completely separate role? So the way I'm reading this plugin is that, you can change the default role capabilities
Right.
just to say authors can do this or that, but then you can also get more granular and create, as you said, what did you call them? Form jockey?
Yes.
They're the form jockey. And let's say we make that a copy of none. You just add that on its own. Well, I guess I would want to copy something because I'm lazy. I'd probably start it as an editor. But your form jockey, you're saying from a post standpoint.
Oh, there's the other edit others versus you turn off being able
Yeah,
to edit.
would this be where you turn off under the posts that they couldn't edit others' posts? Oh, I'm sorry, the opposite. Turn that off.
And what did you started at, you copied what role?
I copied the editor role, so I made
Editor
it like
role?
based off of inheriting because I think it's inheriting the permissions of that other role. So this is kind of like a modified editor. So yeah, I copied that, and then so that could be the thing. If you had copied, let's say, a role, if you had copied a author role, authors by their very nature can't edit others' posts. So maybe that's why you didn't see that as an option. Like let me do this. I'll say author to, and if I make a copy of the author role, add that in. I think by default, I would imagine it's already turned off. So yes, that doesn't let them edit others' posts. So yeah, maybe something got messed up, Gene,
Okay.
if you started without any permissions, but that's a copy the editor one and then just remove the permissions. So that once you're done with this, I think that the thing you can do next, I believe, is if let's say I update this. Oops. Please confirm permissions update. Yeah, I'm kind of afraid what that's going to be. But then I assume at this point now, when I go to myself, I assume this is a new role in here that I can change. Is that how it does this? I'm an admin, so maybe what let me do is I don't have any other users on the site. I assume that would now be a new role I could pull down for that user. Oh, let me add a new user.
Well, one person can have more than one role, right? So I could have the form jockey be able to access the
Other
forms,
role.
and then he'd also be an author that could only
Yeah, because I see
use
that
other
that's what this
forms.
plugin is doing. Exactly. So I can make this person, let's say, the author thing, and that. I think the thing it's going to get confusing from a management standpoint for you. I would almost think you want to have the roles be as least restrictive as possible. So let's say it's that person is an editor, except you want to remove something from them. So don't just create a role just to give one specific permission, take the bigger one and kind of remove things, I think, from it.
Okay.
Yeah, because otherwise managing these things, you're going to kind of forget, what is this one? What does that one do, etc. So that's neat though. It's a neat plugin. Yeah, I did something similar on a site, but it was more about permissions. I wonder if this one would have done. It was more about permissions like files and media and all that, and really more controlling what they saw on the site versus necessarily what they could create on the site. So it's probably overkill.
Well,
I'm
this
gonna-
thing was pretty good because you could do the menu also.
That's neat. Yeah.
And
that's a great-
so I turned off the media. I don't want, they have no reason to be adding pictures.
You're
Right.
going
They
against
just-
phase 3 of Gutenberg collaboration. You're like, no
Yeah, no
collaboration.
no collaborating
Everybody, you
here.
do know.
I don't trust the people. There's two.
let me show one quick thing here. Can you see my screen?
Yeah.
This is,
Yes.
I'm hoping that this gets updated because it's getting a little long in the tooth here, 7 months ago. But this is a not used by a lot of people a plugin that I really liked called if you're managing a website that has multiple users, the user toolkit, because what it does is it allows you to very, very easily, and there are other plugins that do this. I just like the way this one, but you can log in as them real quick by just being logged in as the admin and then clicking now be like them, and now you can see everything, and then you can say, okay, now be like me. Plus you can see these types of things like the last login and stuff like that. But I found that this user toolkit to be really handy. There's a website that I managed that had dozens of users that had access to only specific things, and this was when somebody said I was having a problem, you could use this to go, okay, I'm going to be you now and see what you're seeing, that type of thing. So
I think what was great on
So
that.
only the admin can do this, right? Only the admin can, okay.
yeah. No, this
It's kind of defeating the purpose.
Yeah.
that's an
Gonna
admin
be the
tool.
fun, Dougie.
Yeah. No, that's an admin tool.
The one bonus feature that you just showed for that plugin, Peter, which I think is great too, is just it showed the last login date.
Yes. Yeah.
Because that's one security, we mention this all the time from like a security best practice standpoint. You know, I went on a site not that long ago, earlier this summer, where they had over like 200 users on the site. And I was like, I said, and there were like 50 admins or something. I'm like, what do you do?
Please limit the number of admins, please.
Yes. But it came down to they had a hard time. They're like, well, I'm not sure if so and so still needs it. If I knew about this, at least I could have showed them. Well, this person hasn't logged in 3 years.
That's right. I didn't want to miss, and if it was already said, forgive me, in the chat that Sue had made a comment about Gravity Forms and a plugin. Did you see that?
Yeah, what was the Gravity Form Zero spam plugin?
And I do know that plugin. I haven't used it in a
Okay.
while.
Yeah, I think Bob had mentioned it. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So because you had mentioned, I think you were talking about forms, and then I think you said Gravity Forms, and then that triggered probably for
Right.
those who know that one. But yeah, the Gravity Forms.
One other little last tidbit that Sue threw in, and she had to drop off, is for anyone else who's managing a nonprofit, and I know, Lori, that the one you're working for is a nonprofit, definitely look into, I think we covered this in a whole meetup a while back. It's probably been a couple of years now, but nonprofits can often qualify for lots of free stuff from a software standpoint. So yeah, the events calendar, it's also what is it called again? The like the Office 365, TechSoup. If they haven't registered for TechSoup, do that. You get so much stuff with that. You know, Google Mail, discounted Zoom, et cetera. So just a great thing. You have to submit some information. They're like their tax information to it, but don't.
We actually got Google Workspace for free because of it being a nonprofit.
Yeah.
Really haven't looked into much with WordPress. So
But
thanks
for a lot of plugins too, that's a thing too. Sometimes they don't advertise it front and center, but if you do a search, you know, go to their site and then say blah 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 for nonprofits, you'll often find either great discounts or free versions if you can prove that you're a nonprofit.
Yeah, great, thanks.
WP Forms has free, it says. Give WP, which is for donations. Now, in a lot of cases, you have to prove it. There's the filling.
Well, we have that documentation.
Yeah. And also in TechSoup. Well, not TechSmith. That's
TechSmith. Yeah. Oh, yeah.
TechSoup, and actually TechSmith does have a program too. Or is it
.org, they're .org, I think. Yeah.
So Techs for nonprofits.
Yeah.
It's all about deals for nonprofits. Do you know this site? Yeah. TechSoup.org.
Right.
And you can find stuff where it's like, oh, you know, deep discounts sometimes on
Everything. Yeah. Hardware.
Did I see Adobe in there?
Yeah, yeah,
Wow,
Adobe
great.
Street, yeah. That's how Canva, the other big one too is Canva. So for the web, the a nonprofit,
Oh, okay.
the cat shelter thing.
Yes,
they
Canva,
got
right.
Canva from it.
Good.
Roy, Gravity Forms has a nonprofit level.
Yes.
I think it still costs money.
Yeah,
They have no trial or a free version, but they have a nonprofit, and they do have anti-spam, I don't know, blocks that you can
Mhm.
add to your forms,
Good.
and that's part
Thank
of
you
it.
so much.
I don't see any other questions in the chat, so hopefully this was a grab bag that was a good grab bag. Nobody had to bring anything, you know. No secret Santa here, but yeah, I think the kind of the wrap up theme, I would say, at least we don't have really a wrap up slide, is really a lot happened in the WordPress space in 2023. I think between the number of releases, the changes to the block editor that we continue to see. And again, the AI thing, I think, yes, there was a lot of hype in 2023, but I'm hoping, as I said, what I like to do is as we go through next year, to have some quick shares of like AI kinds of tools or tips. I know Peter does tools and tips, but also kind of to relate that to WordPress and show you practical things. Again, I think you know, that whole learn AI deeply, at least sign up for the free stuff and play with it. Because right now, because it is kind of the wild west of AI, and these companies they're all fighting each other, which is great for us for now. So there's plenty of free things. It's a great time to be their guinea pig. Things will change as pricing settles and all that. So sign up for it, especially like you know, just as a quick example, like the whole DALL-E thing. If you try to go to DALL-E directly, I think you get very limited access, but it just so happens there's like 5 of these front ends that are using DALL-E in the back end. Sign up for all 5. You've you know, quadrupled, quintupled your free credits. So nothing wrong with that. You know, you're helping out the company. So look out for that. And again, our slides are available right now. So all the resources we talked about, if you missed anything, feel free to click on them. And I'm trying to think, Peter, was there anything else from a wrap up standpoint from the grab bag thing?
No, hang on. No, I don't think so. I'm gonna share one. This is actually more probably at this point for you, Ray, but there's so many things, and I think what we might want to do is, yeah, expand the tools and tips to a longer section and take a topic and make it shorter, and then make sure that we have kind of questions advanced. But futuretools.io is a great place if you're intrigued by any of the AI, it's .io stuff. There's a guy named Matt Wolf. He's got a great YouTube channel, and he manages this website called Future Tools, where whenever he finds something, he puts it out there, and it's amazing. It really is. And by the way, the one that I don't like yet that you might hear about is ZipWP, which is create a stunning website. It's not recommended by me anyway. But you know, I'm much more excited to see what the Cadence AI is going to bring, because I
think it's more realistic. I think Cadence one's more focused. So
absolutely.
All right. Well, thanks everyone again for joining us for this whole past year and today's grab bag, and happy holidays to everyone. And we'll see you in 2024, not too far away. Thanks everyone. Have a good night.
Thank you so much.
Take
Right.
care.